I spent Mother's Day completely alone. My children went to a friend's party. Even though I had confirmed with them the day before that they would come for brunch, they both said yes. I cried the whole afternoon, sitting in the empty living room. Later that night, they came back asking me for money to pay their bills. What they didn't know was that I had already bought my one-way ticket, and that decision changed everything. The table had been set since 11 o'clock in the morning. Clean white linens covered it. I brought out the good china, the one I saved only for special days. I laid out the cloth napkins I had ironed the night before. In the middle of the table, I placed a small flower arrangement I bought with the last few dollars from my Social Security check. The chicken was roasting in the oven. The potatoes were peeled. The salad was ready. Everything was prepared for Mother's Day brunch. I had called them the day before to confirm. I called Tanisha first. She answered quickly, sounding rushed like always, using that tone she had when she was doing many things at once while talking to me. I asked her if they were coming the next day. She said, "Yes, Mama. Of course we'll be there." Then I called Malik. He was short and straight to the point. "Yeah, Ma. We're coming. Don't worry." He hung up quickly. I felt relieved. I really thought this time would be different. I believed they would remember. I sat on the sofa and waited. At 12:00, I checked the clock. Nothing happened. By 12:30, that familiar tight feeling formed in my stomach. At exactly 1 o'clock, the chicken was done. I took it out of the oven. The smell filled the empty house. I set the table and sat down. I waited a little longer. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I called Tanisha. No answer. I called Malik. It went straight to voicemail. I tried again. Still nothing. The chicken started getting cold. The potatoes too. I stood up and walked to the window. The street was quiet. Families passed by, walking and laughing. Mothers held flowers. Children hugged them. I went back to the table and sat there, facing all the empty plates. That was when I understood. They weren't coming. Not this year. Just like last year. Just like my birthday. Just like Christmas. There was always an excuse. There was always something more important than me. I stayed sitting there for a long time. I don't even know how long. The clock moved to 3, then 4, then 5. The light outside slowly changed. Shadows stretched across the room. The house was so quiet I could hear my own breathing. I could hear my heart breaking again. At 6 o'clock in the evening, I got up and put the food in the fridge. No one was going to eat it. I cleared the table, folded the linens, put away the napkins, and threw the flowers into the trash. They were already wilted, just like me. I sat back down on the sofa. That was when the tears came. They weren't loud cries. They weren't dramatic. They were quiet tears, the kind that hurt the most because they come from deep inside. From the place where you hide all the disappointments you don't want to face. From the place where you know the truth, but choose to ignore it. I cried thinking about all the Mother's Days I had spent alone. I cried about all the times they promised to come but didn't. I cried because I had given my whole life to them, and they couldn't give me even one afternoon. I am 70 years old. 70 years of life. 48 years of being a mother. And that day, sitting alone in that empty room, I finally accepted something I had refused to admit for a long time. My children didn't love me. Or maybe they loved me. But not enough. Not enough to remember. Not enough to show up. Not enough to care. Night came, and I stayed there in the dark without turning on the lights. Just me, the silence, and the heavy pain in my chest that I no longer knew how to remove. I thought about calling them again. I thought about sending a message. I thought about telling them how much they had hurt me. But I didn't. I already knew what they would say. Sorry, Mama. Things got complicated. Next time. There was always a next time that never came. It was almost 10 o'clock at night when I heard a car stop outside. I recognized the sound right away. It was Malik's car. Then I heard voices, laughter, footsteps, the key in the door, and the door opening. They turned on the living room light and saw me sitting there in the dark, my eyes swollen from crying. My heart shattered. Tanisha spoke first. "Hey, Mama. We just thought we'd stop by." She was wearing an expensive dress. Her makeup was perfect. She smelled like perfume and alcohol. Malik walked in behind her. He was dressed nicely too. New shirt. Shiny shoes. He smiled at me the way he always did when he wanted something. Hey, Ma. How was your day? I couldn't answer. My throat was tight, and no words would come out. I looked at them and finally saw the truth clearly. They had been at a party, laughing and drinking, while I cried alone in this house. Tanisha sat in the armchair across from me. Malik stayed standing. The room felt tense and quiet. Then Tanisha took out her phone, glanced at it, and looked back at me. Mama, we need to talk about something important. Malik sat on the arm of the sofa. Yeah, Ma. We have a problem. We need your help. Tanisha nodded. It's urgent, Mama. The bills piled up. Malik's rent. My credit card. It's about $3,000. We need you to lend it to us. I looked at them. These were my children. The children I worked for until my body broke. The children I sacrificed everything for. The children who didn't come to Mother's Day brunch. But they came that night for money. Something broke inside me. Something that could never be fixed. I thought about the envelope hidden in my bedroom. The envelope with the one-way bus ticket. No return. They didn't know yet. They didn't know I had already decided. They didn't know this was the last time they would see me like this. Quiet, obedient, always available. They didn't know everything was about to change. While they kept talking about their problems, their debts, and their needs, I thought of only one thing. My name is Vivian Sterling. I am 70 years old. And I already bought my one-way ticket. It wasn't always like this. There was a time when my children hugged me when they came home from school. A time when Tanisha ran to me shouting, Mama, and wrapped her arms around my neck. A time when Malik couldn't wait to tell me everything he learned that day. There was a time when I mattered to them. We were poor, but we were happy, or at least I thought we were. We lived in a small house on the edge of Cloverdale, Georgia. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a tiny kitchen where the 4 of us barely fit. My husband, Marcus, worked construction. I cleaned houses. Together, we earned just enough to eat and pay rent. We had nothing extra, but we survived. Tanisha was 6. Malik was 4. They ran around barefoot, playing with sticks and rocks because we couldn't afford toys. But they didn't care. They were children. Innocent. They didn't know we were poor. Every night, I bathed them in the old tub. I washed their hair, trimmed their nails, dressed them in the clean clothes I washed by hand. I tucked them into bed and told them stories until they fell asleep. They were my whole world. My reason to wake up every morning. Marcus was a quiet man. He didn't talk much, but he loved me in his own way. He came home tired, ate the food I made, and sometimes looked at me and said, "Thank you, Vivian." That was enough for me. Then Marcus died. It was a construction accident. A beam fell. They said he didn't suffer. They said it was quick, as if that made it easier. He was 42. I was 38. Tanisha was 12. Malik was 10. Suddenly, I was alone. No savings. No steady job. Just my hands and my will to survive. The money they gave me after Marcus died was small. $500 a month. It wasn't even enough for food. So I worked. Harder than ever. I cleaned houses in the morning. Washed clothes in the afternoon. Ironed at night. I slept 4 hours if I was lucky. My hands became rough. My back ached. My knees hurt. But I didn't care. My children had food. They went to school. They had clothes and shoes. They had a mother who would give her life for them. And I was ready to do it. Tanisha, the oldest, was serious and responsible. She helped take care of Malik when I worked late. She cooked for him and helped him with homework. She was a grown-up child trapped in a child's body. I always felt guilty about that. I felt like I stole her childhood and forced her to grow up too fast. Malik was different. He was cheerful and full of dreams. He was always creating things. He drew on any paper he could find. He used to tell me that one day he would be an artist, that he would be famous, that he would buy me a big house, and that I would never have to work again. And I believed him because mothers always believe their children. Time passed. They grew up. The house started to feel smaller every year. Tanisha began to complain. She said her friends had better things, better houses, better clothes, better lives. She looked at me with that quiet blame that hurts more than words. Like it was my fault we were poor. Like I wasn't doing everything I could. Malik changed too. He stopped drawing. He stopped dreaming. He started spending time with other boys. He came home late and didn't tell me where he had been. When I asked, he answered with one-word replies. He became distant and cold, like a stranger living in my house. Still, I kept working. I kept sacrificing myself, because that's what mothers do. I believed that one day they would understand. One day they would be grateful. One day they would say, "Thank you, Mama, for everything you did for us." When Tanisha turned 18, she got a job at a store downtown. She started earning her own money. I thought she would help me. I thought I could finally rest a little. But she didn't. Tanisha saved every penny for herself. She bought new clothes, shoes, makeup, and perfume. She went out with her friends. And when I asked her to help with the house, she looked at me like I had asked her for something impossible. Malik barely finished school. He didn't want to go to college. He said it wasn't for him. He said he would get a job and make money without more education. I didn't push him. I was too tired to fight anymore. He got a job at a mechanic shop. The pay was small, but it was something. I thought he would stay with me and help with expenses. But after 6 months, he told me he was moving out. He said he found an apartment with friends. He needed his own space. He said he was a man now and couldn't live with me forever. I stayed quiet. I didn't tell him I felt abandoned. I didn't tell him I was scared of being alone. I said nothing. I helped him pack. I gave him money for his first month's rent. Money I didn't have, money I took from my small savings. And I watched him leave without looking back. Tanisha left 2 years later. She met a man, fell in love, and got married. She didn't really invite me to the wedding. She invited me because she had to. I went anyway. I sat in a corner. No one talked to me. No one introduced me. No one made me feel important. I was just the bride's mother, a formality, an obligation. Her marriage lasted 3 years. Then she divorced and came back to my house crying. She said her husband cheated on her and treated her badly. She said she needed a place to stay. I took her in. Of course I did. She was my daughter. But she never thanked me. She stayed for 6 months, healed, met another man, and left again, without even saying goodbye. Malik never married. He had many girlfriends, all short-term, all the same. He brought them around when he wanted to impress them. He would say, "This is my mama. Bless her heart. She lives alone and always sacrifices herself." And they looked at me with pity. That kind of pity that makes you feel small, invisible, and unneeded. The years kept passing. I kept working. I couldn't clean houses like before. My back hurt so much some days I couldn't get out of bed. My hands shook. My knees felt weak. But they kept coming. Tanisha and Malik came whenever they needed something. Almost always money. $200 for rent. $300 for a debt. $500 for an emergency. They never really explained. And I always gave. Even when I skipped my medicine. Even when I ate less. Even when I turned off the heat in winter to save money. Because they were my children. Because I loved them. Because I believed they would change one day. That they would grow up. That they would finally see all I had done. But that day never came. While I waited, they kept talking. They kept asking. They kept forgetting about me. Until Mother's Day. That day I sat in the empty living room, crying, waiting, slowly breaking inside. Then they came home that night, smelling like parties and fun, like a life I never had, and asked me for $3,000 as casually as asking for water. That's when something clicked in my mind. I realized this would never change. They would never change. I could keep giving until I died, and they would keep taking without thanks, without care, without love. That night, I didn't give them the money. I told them I didn't have it. Tanisha got angry. She made that face she always made when things didn't go her way. But Mama, you always have something saved. You always help us. You can't have nothing. Her voice sounded accusing, like I owed her something. Like fixing her life was my job. Malik was more blunt. Ma, we really need this money. These are serious debts. If we don't pay, we'll be in trouble. He looked at me, expecting me to give in, like I always did. But this time I didn't. I told them no. I told them I didn't have the money. I told them my Social Security was only $1,200 a month, that I had to pay for electricity, water, food and medicine, that there was nothing left, that I couldn't help them this time. Tanisha stood up and sighed in frustration. Unbelievable. Mama. When we really need you, you can't help. Malik stood up too. Well, we'll figure it out another way. Thanks anyway. His thank you sounded empty and fake. They left without saying goodbye. They didn't ask how I was. They didn't notice my swollen eyes. They didn't see the table I had set for them. They didn't care that it was Mother's Day and they had left me alone. The door closed. And I was left again in the empty living room. In the empty house. In an empty life. I stayed awake all night. I couldn't sleep. My thoughts kept going in circles. All the years. All the sacrifices. All the times I went hungry so they could eat. All the times I worked while sick to pay for their schooling. All the times I gave even what I didn't have. And still, they didn't remember. They weren't even grateful. To them, I was just an ATM. A place to come when they needed something. A resource, not a person. Not their mother. Just a source of money that was always supposed to be there. The next morning, I woke up early. I hadn't slept much, but I got up anyway. I made myself a cup of coffee, sat in the kitchen, and made a decision. I was going to look into things. I needed the truth. Something didn't make sense. Malik had a job. Tanisha had one too. They both earned more than I did. So why did they always need money? Where was all their income going? I opened my phone and went on social media. I almost never used it because I didn't really understand how it worked. But Tanisha had shown me once. She showed me how to search for people and look at their photos. I searched for Tanisha's profile first. And there it was. Photo after photo. Tanisha eating at expensive restaurants. Tanisha wearing new dresses. Tanisha traveling to the beach. Tanisha at parties. Tanisha holding drinks. Tanisha smiling. She was living a life she always said she couldn't afford. A life full of luxury, while asking me for rent money. I kept scrolling. More photos. More restaurants. More clothes. More trips. Posts from a week ago. 2 days ago. Yesterday. Even last night. Then I saw a picture from the party she went to instead of coming to brunch with me. She was with her friends, all dressed up, all smiling. The caption said, "Perfect day with my favorites." Hearts. Emojis. Happiness. A perfect day. A perfect day, while I was crying alone in my house. While I was waiting for them. While I was putting food away that no one came to eat. I searched for Malik's profile next. It was the same story. Photos at bars. Photos with friends. Photos with new motorcycles. Photos in designer clothes. Photos at concerts and events. A full life. An expensive life. A life that didn't match someone who couldn't pay his bills. I stared at those photos for hours. My chest felt tight. It wasn't just sadness. It was something deeper. I felt cheated. Used. Foolish for believing them all these years. Then I saw something that froze me. A screenshot of a group chat. Tanisha had posted it. Maybe by mistake. Or maybe she just didn't care who saw it. The group was called the Sterling Kids. It was only Tanisha and Malik. The messages said, "Malik, did you ask the old woman yet?" Tanisha, "Not yet, but I know how to handle her. I'll tell her it's urgent. You know how she is. She always falls for it." Malik, LOL. Yeah, poor thing. But hey, that's what she's there for, right? To take care of us when she's old. Until then, she can fund us a little longer. I read it again. And again. And again. The old woman. Poor thing. Fund us a little longer. That's how they talked about me. I closed my phone. My hands were shaking. I felt sick to my stomach. I went to the bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror. I saw a 70-year-old woman. Tired. Worn out. Deep wrinkles. White hair. Sad eyes. Hands twisted from years of hard work. This was me. Vivian Sterling. The woman who gave her whole life to 2 children, who called her the old woman. The woman who broke her back so they could have what she never did. The woman who kept giving them money while they laughed about her in private. I went back to my bedroom and opened the drawer beside my bed. I took out an old box where I kept important papers, documents, receipts, proof of payments. I started going through everything. I added up how much money I had given them in the last 5 years. $22,000. In 5 years, I gave them $20,000. Money from my Social Security. Money I saved by going without things. Money I borrowed and was still paying back. $20,000 they spent on parties, clothes, trips, and fun, while telling me it was for emergencies and debts. They lied to me. They always had. And I believed them, like foolish mothers do. We believe our children even when everything tells us not to. I put the papers back and closed the box. I sat on the edge of my bed. That was when I understood something clearly. If I didn't change this, no one would. They were never going to wake up and treat me better. They were never going to be grateful. They were never going to love me the way I loved them. I had 2 choices. I could keep living like this until I died. Keep being the old woman they used. Keep giving until there was nothing left. Die alone in this house while they lived their perfect lives online. Or I could do something different. Something I had never done before. Something that scared me just thinking about it. I could choose myself. For the first time in 70 years, I could think about me. I went to the living room and turned on the old computer Malik had given me years ago, back when it was too slow for him. I searched online for retirement communities near the coast. I don't know why I searched for that. Maybe because I always dreamed of seeing the ocean, of living near water, of hearing waves, of feeling the breeze, things I never allowed myself to want. Several options came up. Quiet places, communities for older adults, small but decent homes, affordable prices. Far from this city, far from this life, far from them. I wrote down names, numbers, and addresses. I turned off the computer and sat in the same room where I had cried the day before. And I started planning something I never thought I would do. I started planning my escape, my freedom, my new life. A life where Vivian Sterling wouldn't be the old woman. A life where I wouldn't be forgotten. A life where I could just be Vivian, a woman, a person, someone who mattered. But first, I needed to know more. I needed to see who my children really were. So I decided to do something else I had never done before. I decided to investigate them. I called Ellie Johnson, my old neighbor. She was the only person left who treated me like a human being. Years ago, when her husband died, I helped her. I gave her food. I lent her money. I comforted her. And she never forgot it. Unlike my children, Ellie knew how to be grateful. She answered on the second ring. "Vivian, it's so good to hear your voice. How are you?" Her voice was warm and real. We talked for a bit. I didn't tell her everything, just enough. Then I asked her for a favor. I needed help finding out where my children were going, what they were doing, and who they were with. Ellie didn't ask why. She just said, "Count on me." We agreed to meet the next day. That night I slept better. Not because I was calm, but because for the first time in years I had a plan. I was no longer the woman who waited. I was the woman who acted. The next morning, Ellie came over. She brought coffee and pastries. We sat at the kitchen table. I told her everything. I showed her the screenshots, the receipts, the photos, all of it. She listened quietly. When I finished, she took my hand and said, "Vivian, this has to stop." And she was right. But it had to end the right way. A way that gave me back my dignity. Ellie told me her nephew worked at a law firm. She said she could get me an appointment. That he could help me organize my papers, my money, my life. I agreed. 3 days later, I sat in an office across from a young lawyer. His name was Avery Jones. He was about 35 years old. Serious but kind. He offered me water and asked me to explain my situation. And I talked. More than I had in years. I told him everything, about my children, the money, the lies, the way they treated me. I showed him all the evidence. He listened. He took notes. He asked questions no one had ever asked me before. Questions about me. about what I wanted, about what I needed. Avery explained that I wasn't obligated to give my children money, that they were adults responsible for their own lives, that I had the right to live in peace. He explained wills, bank accounts, and inheritance. He told me I could protect what little I had, that I could decide where my things would go when I died, not automatically to my children. That conversation changed everything. I had always assumed my life belonged to them, that my things were theirs. That was just how it was. But Avery helped me understand that I still had a voice. I was still alive. I still had power. I asked how much his services would cost. He said $500. It was a lot for me, more than I had. But Ellie lent me the money. She told me not to worry about paying her back. I hired Avery that same day. He asked me to gather my documents. Deeds, bank papers, old wills, receipts. We set another meeting for the following week. I left that office feeling different, stronger, clearer, like a light had been turned on in a room I had lived in my whole life. That night, I went through all my papers, the house deed, my old will, my bank accounts, my pension. For the first time, I wasn't looking at my life through hope or denial. I was finally seeing it for what it really was. Everything was organized, but nothing felt right. The old will said everything would go to Tanisha and Malik, split equally. The house, the money, everything. As if they deserved it. As if they had done anything to earn it. I knew that had to change. But not yet. First, I needed to see more. I needed to understand how far their lies went and how deep their disrespect really was. I had to be completely sure before making choices I couldn't take back. So I started following them quietly, like a poor man's detective. I knew where Malik worked. I knew where Tanisha lived. I began passing by those places, watching, taking mental notes. One Tuesday afternoon, I saw Malik leave the mechanic shop. He wasn't alone. He was with a young woman, maybe about 25 years old. They got into a car I had never seen before. It was new and expensive. They drove off together, laughing and holding hands. I followed them by bus. They went to a restaurant downtown. One of those places where a single plate costs around $50. I stayed outside and watched them go in. I saw them sit by the window. I saw them order wine. Iwatit Melik smile her. I watched how kindly he treated her, like she was someone special. My son, who told me he couldn't pay his rent, was spending over $100 on dinner. My son, who kept asking me for money, was driving a new car. My son, who said he was broke, was living like he had plenty. I stayed outside the restaurant. I don't know why. Maybe I needed to see it with my own eyes. Maybe I needed proof of what I already knew. 2 hours later, they came out still laughing and happy. They kissed on the street, got into the car, and drove away. I went home on the last bus. I was tired. I was sad. But I was also more certain than ever that I was doing the right thing. The next day, it was Tanisha's turn. I knew she worked in an office at the mall. I went early and sat on a bench outside her workplace. I waited. At lunchtime, I saw her come out with 2 friends. The same friends from her social media photos. They went into a clothing store. I followed them inside and pretended to look at clothes while listening to them talk. Tanisha tried on a red dress. The price tag said $200. Her friends told her it looked beautiful and that she should buy it. She hesitated for a moment, then said, "Yes, I'll take it. I already paid off my debts anyway. Now I can treat myself." She had already paid her debts. The same debts she asked me for $3,000 to cover just 2 weeks earlier. The debts that were supposed to be urgent and desperate. And there she was buying a $200 dress like it was nothing. I left the store before they did. I didn't want them to see me. I wasn't ready to confront them yet. It wasn't time. I went home and sat in my room. I took out an old notebook and started writing everything down. The dates. The places. The things they bought. The lies. The next day, I called Avery and told him what I had discovered. He listened carefully. He said all of it was important and would help me make better decisions. He asked if I was sure about what I wanted to do. I told him yes. More sure than ever. We began the process. Avery prepared a new will. This time, I decided who would receive what. He also prepared documents to change the beneficiaries on my bank accounts. Now, when I died, my children wouldn't automatically receive everything. They would receive only what I chose to give them, or nothing at all. But we didn't stop there. Avery suggested I open a new bank account, one my children didn't know about. A place to keep my money where they couldn't ask for it, because they didn't know it existed. I did exactly that. I opened an account at a different bank. I transferred most of my pension into it. I left only a small amount in the old account, just enough to make it look like I barely survived, which wasn't far from the truth. But now I had something saved. Something that belonged only to me. Something no one could take. I also started selling things from the house. Old furniture I didn't use anymore. Clothes that no longer fit. Books. Dishes. Things I had collected over 50 years. With Ellie's help, I sold them online. It wasn't much, $50 here, $100 there, but it added up. Every dollar went into my new account. My secret account. My escape fund. Because that's what I was planning. An escape. A way out of a life that was slowly killing me. Each day, I felt more certain. I didn't want to live like this anymore. I didn't want to beg for love. I didn't want to be the woman they use for money. I searched for bus tickets. I looked at faraway places where no one knew me. Places where Vivian Sterling could start again. I found a small coastal town about 600 miles away. Quiet. Affordable. Houses with a view of the ocean. The ocean I had always dreamed of seeing. The bus ticket cost $70 one way. I saved the information. I hadn't bought it yet, but I knew I would. Meanwhile, I kept pretending. I acted like the same Vivian whenever Tanisha or Malik called, which wasn't often. Very rarely. 2 weeks passed. No calls. No messages. Nothing. It was like I didn't exist. And for the first time, I was okay with that. I knew this loneliness wasn't permanent. I was building something new. I was taking control. Ellie came over often. We drank coffee. We talked. She told me about her grandchildren. I told her about my plans. She supported me completely. One day she said something I'll never forget. Vivian, you gave 50 years of your life to them. Now give yourself at least 10 years before it's too late. She was right. I was 70 years old. If I was lucky, I had 10 or 15 years left. And I wanted to truly live them, not just exist, waiting for my children to remember my name. I signed all the new papers with Avery. The new will. The bank documents. Everything was legal and protected. He gave me copies and shook my hand. Take good care of yourself, Mrs. Sterling. You deserve the best. I left his office feeling lighter. Like a lifetime of guilt had been lifted from my shoulders. That night, I sat at my computer and bought the ticket. A one-way bus ticket. Destination, Coastal Haven. A place I had never been, but that would soon be my home. The departure date was 2 months away. Enough time to prepare. Enough time to quietly close this chapter of my life. I placed the ticket in the drawer beside my bed. Every night, I looked at it before sleeping. It was my promise. My hope. In 2 months, I would leave. In 2 months, I would be free. But before I left, I had one more thing to do. They needed to know. Not out of anger. Not for revenge. But for dignity. I told Ellie my plan. She looked at me with her wise eyes and asked if I was sure. I told her yes. She asked if I would regret it later. I told her the only thing I regretted was waiting so long. Ellie helped me plan everything. We decided I would invite Tanisha and Malik to dinner. One last dinner. I would tell them I had something important to say. They would come. Of course they would. They would think I was giving them something. Money, the house, something valuable. They always thought I was going to give. But this time, I would take something back. My life. My dignity. My name. We chose the date. 3 weeks away. A Saturday. Enough time to prepare. Enough time to make sure I wouldn't change my mind. I called Tanisha first. She answered on the 4th ring. Hello, Mama. What's going on? Her voice sounded distracted, just like always. I told her I wanted to have a family dinner. That it had been a long time since we were all together. that I had something important to tell them. There was a pause. Then she asked, "Is it something bad, Mama? Are you sick?" Her concern didn't sound real at all. It sounded rehearsed. I told her no, that I wasn't sick. I said I just wanted to see them, that I wanted to talk, and that it was important. She accepted and said she would come. I hung up and called Malik. That conversation went almost the same way. He also asked if I was sick. He also sounded distracted, like he was doing something else while talking to me. But he agreed. He said he would be there. Both of them confirmed. I marked the date on my calendar. 3 weeks. 21 days. 504 hours. I started counting backward. During those 3 weeks, I prepared everything carefully. I made a list of what I needed to tell them, what I needed to show them, and how the evening would go. I practiced in front of the mirror. I worked on my voice, my tone, my words. I wanted to sound calm, firm, and sure. I also prepared the evidence. I printed screenshots from their social media. The messages where they made fun of me. The photos of their expensive lives while they asked me for money. I printed receipts of every dollar I had given them over the past 5 years. Everything was organized. Everything was numbered. Avery prepared official documents too. A letter stating that I was ending all financial support to my children. That they would not receive another cent from me. That they were adults and had to take care of themselves. He also prepared copies of the new will and the bank changes. Everything signed. Everything legal. Then I prepared envelopes. 3 of them. 1 for Tanisha. 1 for Malik. 1 for Ellie. In Ellie's envelope, I placed a thank you note and $500. It was the money she had lent me, plus a little extra, for her kindness, her loyalty, and for treating me like a human being. In Tanisha's envelope, I placed keys to a safe deposit box. Inside were things that belonged to her father, letters, photos, memories. Things that might matter to her. Maybe they wouldn't. But it was the only thing she would receive from me while I was alive. In Malik's envelope, I placed keys to another safe deposit box. Inside were items from his childhood, memories from his father, things I no longer needed. Because where I was going, there was no space for the past. The days passed slowly. Each day I felt more nervous, more anxious, but also more certain. Sometimes I doubted myself. Sometimes I wondered if I was being too harsh. Then I remembered Mother's Day. I remembered the lies. I remembered being called the old woman. And the doubt disappeared. Ellie came over every day. She helped me prepare. She listened while I practiced. She told me I was strong, that I was brave. Her support kept me steady. 1 week before the dinner, Malik called again. He needed money. $500 to fix his car. He said it broke down. He said he needed it for work. He said if he didn't fix it, he would lose his job. The same story. The same script. I told him I didn't have the money. I told him we would talk after the dinner. He got angry. He said he couldn't wait. He said it was urgent. I repeated that I didn't have it. He hung up. 2 days later, I saw a photo on his social media. The same new car I had already seen him driving, working perfectly. Lies. Always lies. They weren't even trying to make them believable anymore. Then the day arrived. Saturday. I woke up early and cleaned the whole house. Not because they deserved it, but because I did. I wanted my last dinner in this house as their mother to be dignified. I cooked all day. Their favorite childhood meals. Roast chicken. Scalloped potatoes. Fresh salad. Homemade bread. Chocolate dessert. I didn't cook to please them. I cooked to remind them of what they were losing. I set the table with my best things. Fine china. Silverware from my mother. Crystal glasses. Embroidered tablecloths. The table looked beautiful. Dignified. Like a Last Supper should. By 6 o'clock, everything was ready. The food. The table. The envelopes. The documents. I took a bath. I put on my best dress, a simple black one. I fixed my hair and added a little makeup. I looked in the mirror and saw a different woman. A woman who wasn't afraid anymore. They arrived together at 7 in Malik's car. I watched through the window. They were laughing, talking, relaxed. Like this was just another dinner. I opened the door before they knocked. Come in, I said calmly. I was expecting you. Tanisha gave me a quick kiss on the cheek. Malik gave me a short, empty hug. They sat down. Tanisha said the house looked nice. Malik asked what I cooked. I offered them wine. Cheap wine. I wasn't wasting the good one on them. We talked about nothing important. Weather. Traffic. Work. Empty talk. Inside, I was counting the minutes. After half an hour, I told them dinner was ready. They admired the table. Tanisha said everything looked delicious. Malik asked if it was a special occasion. Yes, I said. Very special. I'll explain after dinner. We ate. They talked. I stayed quiet and watched them. I looked for something. Any sign of love, of regret, of the children they once were. I found nothing. Only two selfish adults eating my food and waiting to see what they could get from me. After dinner, I cleared the table. Tanisha offered to help. I told her to stay seated. I went to the kitchen and took a deep breath. This was it. I returned with a tray. On it were the envelopes, the documents, the evidence. I placed everything in the center of the table. They looked at it with interest, with hope, probably thinking it was money. I sat down and looked at them. Tanisha first, then Malik. My voice was steady. I told them I had called them because I couldn't stay silent anymore. Because there were things I needed to say. I told them I knew everything. The lies. The insults. The name they called me. The jokes they made while I gave them my last money. Their faces changed. Tanisha stopped smiling. Malik froze. They tried to speak. I raised my hand. No, I said. Now it's my turn. You've had years to talk and lie. Now you listen. I placed the screenshots on the table. One by one. Their messages. Their mockery. Their plans. Everything printed. Everything real. Tanisha turned pale. Malik stared at the papers, unable to move. Mama. Tanisha started. I don't care what you meant, I said. I care about what you said. Malik tried to excuse himself. Mama, that was months ago. We were just joking. I looked him straight in the eyes. Don't lie to me anymore. Those messages are from 2 weeks ago. And you weren't joking. I laid out the receipts. 5 years of payments. $22,000. That's what I gave you, I said. For emergencies. Or so you claimed. Then I placed the photos on the table. Expensive restaurants. New cars. Trips. Designer clothes. This is what you did with my money, I said. While I skipped meals. While I stopped buying medicine. Tanisha tried again. Mama, please. There is nothing to explain, I said. The proof speaks for itself. Malik stood up, angry. This is ridiculous, he said. You're overreacting. You're attacking us over private conversations. Everyone says things they don't really mean when they're with friends. I watched Malik stand up. I didn't move. He didn't scare me. Sit down, Malik, I said. I'm not finished. Something in my voice stopped him. He sat back down. Tanisha had tears in her eyes. Fake tears. Tears because she was caught, not because she felt sorry. I knew the difference. I told them about Mother's Day. I told them everything. How I had confirmed with them the day before. How they promised to come. How I cooked, prepared, and waited. How I sat alone in that house crying while they were at a party, laughing, having fun, and not thinking about me at all. Tanisha started sobbing. Mama, I'm so sorry. It was a mistake. We should have come. A mistake? I repeated. A mistake is forgetting milk. A mistake is being late. What you did was a choice. You chose a party over your mother. You chose your friends over me. And then you still came to ask me for money that same night. Malik kept his head down. He couldn't look at me. He knew he had nothing to say. I told them that the night they came asking for $3,000 was the moment something broke inside me. That was when I understood it would never be enough. I would never be important. I was just a wallet. I took out the documents Avery prepared, the new will and the bank changes. This is why I called you tonight, I said. This is my announcement. I showed them the will. I explained that I had changed everything. That they would no longer automatically inherit anything. That my money, my house, and my life were now my decisions. Tanisha stopped crying. Her eyes went wide. What does that mean, Mama? It means I took control, I said. You won't manipulate me anymore. You won't lie to me anymore. You won't get another cent from me. It's over. Malik stood up again. This is crazy. You can't do this. We're your children. We have rights. I looked at him calmly. You have no rights to my money. I worked for it. I destroyed my body to give you everything, and you paid me back with lies and disrespect. I can do this, and I already did. I showed them the bank papers. I told them I had opened a new account, that most of my money was there, that they would never have access to it. Tanisha jumped up, her sadness turning into anger. This is Ellie's fault, isn't it? That snake put these ideas in your head. She's manipulating you. I looked at her with pity. Ellie is the only person who has treated me with respect in years. The only one who listens to me as a person, not as an ATM. Don't ever talk about her like that again. Malik started pacing. This can't be real. We've always loved you, Mama. We've always been there. I laughed, dry and empty. Been there? Where were you on Mother's Day? On my birthday? When I was sick last year? Where were you when I needed you? He said nothing. Because the truth was clear. They were never there. They only came when they needed money. I handed them the envelopes. These are for you, I said. Open them or don't. I don't care anymore. Tanisha opened hers with shaking hands. She saw the keys and the note. That's it, she asked. Nothing else. That's it, I said. Malik didn't even open his. We sat in silence. Heavy, painful silence. A silence full of truth. Tanisha tried one last time. Mama, please. We can change. Give us another chance. I shook my head. You had years of chances. Every lonely Mother's Day. Every dollar I gave you that I didn't have. Every time I forgave you. There are no chances left. Malik grabbed my shoulders. Mama, you're angry. Don't do something you'll regret. We're your family. We're all you have. I removed his hands. Exactly, Malik. You're all I have. And that's why I'm leaving, because what I have is nothing. I told them to leave. Dinner was over. There was nothing else to say. Tanisha cried again. Maybe real tears. I didn't care. Malik looked at me like I was a stranger. Maybe I was. To them, I was never Vivian. I was just Mama. The giver. The fixer. I opened the door. Go, I said. My voice didn't shake. I felt no guilt. Only peace. They left. I watched the car drive away. When the lights disappeared, I closed the door. I felt relief. Deep relief. I cleaned the table. Every plate I washed felt like letting go of the old Vivian. The one who stayed quiet, who accepted crumbs. That version stayed behind. The days after were silent. No calls. No messages. It hurt at first. Then I understood. The silence proved I was right. Ellie helped me pack. I sold the house. I gave things away. Each item made me lighter. 3 weeks later, Tanisha came alone. She tried to fix things. She apologized. I listened. Then I told her I was leaving. Forever. She asked the wrong questions. I told her goodbye. She walked to the door. And that was the end. She stopped and turned back. If you change your mind, she said softly. If you decide to stay, if you decide to give us another chance, please call me. I'm not going to change my mind, I replied. This is my final decision, and it's the best decision I've ever made in my whole life. She left. She closed the door slowly, as if closing it gently would make it hurt less. I stood there, waiting to feel something, guilt, sadness, regret. But I didn't. All I felt was peace. More clarity. More confidence that I was doing the right thing. That night, Ellie came over for dinner. I told her everything, about Tanisha's visit, what she said and how she left. Ellie listened quietly while we ate the soup she had made. When I finished talking, she simply said, I'm proud of you, Vivian. So proud. Those words touched my soul. No one had said that to me in years. No one had been proud of me. My children never were. Marcus maybe was, but he never said it out loud. Ellie was the first person in decades who made me feel like I was doing something right, something brave, something important. I handed her the envelope with her name on it. She opened it, saw the money, and tried to give it back. No, Vivian. This is too much. I don't need it. I helped you from the heart. Ellie, I insisted. You've been more family to me in these last few months than my own children have been in years. Please take it, not just as payment, but as a thank you. Thank you for seeing me, for listening to me, and for treating me like a person. She finally accepted it. She hugged me. A real hug. The kind that means something. The kind that makes you feel like you're not alone in the world. We cried together. But they weren't sad tears. They were tears of freedom, of friendship, of two older women who understood each other without needing words. The days that followed passed very fast. The house buyer rushed everything. He wanted to close the deal in 2 weeks. Perfect, I said. The faster, the better. I signed papers, documents, transfers, everything legal, everything needed, so that when I left, there would be no loose ends. Avery helped me with all of it. He made sure the money from the sale went into my new bank account, the one my children didn't know about. $100,000. It was more money than I had ever had in my life. And it was all mine. I withdrew only what I needed in cash, $5,000. The rest stayed safely in the bank, protected for my new life, for emergencies, for whatever might come. No one else had access. Only me. Only I would decide what to do with it. 1 week before I left, I got a text from Malik. It was the first time I had heard from him since the dinner. The message said, "Mama, Tanisha told me you're leaving. I don't know if it's true, but if it is, please rethink it. Don't do anything crazy. Think about us. Think about the family." I didn't reply. There was nothing to say. I deleted the message. I blocked his number. I did the same with Tanisha's. I didn't want their texts. I didn't want their calls. I didn't want anything from them anymore. Moving day came. People from a moving company arrived. They packed the few boxes I had prepared. I sent them by delivery to Coastal Haven, to a small hotel where I would stay for a few weeks while I looked for a permanent place. Everything was organized. Everything was planned. Everything was ready. The house was empty. Completely empty. I walked through the rooms one last time. The bedroom where I slept with Marcus. The room where Tanisha and Malik grew up. The kitchen where I cooked thousands of meals. The living room where I cried on that Mother's Day that changed everything. I said goodbye to each space, not with sadness but with acceptance. This house held my past, but I was moving toward my future. And my future didn't need these walls. It didn't need these memories. It only needed a 70-year-old woman, a bus ticket, and a small suitcase. I closed the door for the last time. I handed the keys to the lawyer. I signed the final paper. And just like that, the house was no longer mine. 42 years of history ended with one signature and a handshake. And I didn't cry. I didn't look back. I just kept walking forward. That night, Ellie took me to her house. I slept on her sofa. We stayed up late talking about life, about dreams, about the ocean I was about to see. She told me to visit her whenever I could. I promised I would. And it was a promise I truly meant to keep. The day I was leaving began with a clear blue sky. As if the universe knew I needed a good day to start my new life. I woke up early. Ellie had already made coffee. We ate breakfast together in silence. A comfortable silence, the kind that only true friends share. My bus was scheduled for 10 a.m. Ellie drove me to the terminal. I carried my only suitcase, a small one with the basics. Clothes, documents, a few old photographs. Not of my children. I left those behind. Only photos of Marcus, my parents, and moments worth remembering. We arrived an hour early. We sat on a bench, holding hands like two sisters saying goodbye. Ellie's eyes were wet. "Vivian," she said, "you're going to be okay. I know it. You're going to find the peace you deserve." "I know," I replied. And for the first time in a long time, I truly believed it. Then something unexpected happened. While we were sitting there, I saw someone familiar. It was Tanisha. She was walking quickly toward me. Malik followed behind her. My heart started beating faster. How did they find me? How did they know? They came up to me. Tanisha was out of breath. Mama, thank God we found you. Malik stared at my suitcase and the ticket in my hand. The reality that I was really leaving finally hit them. Ellie stood up and stepped in front of me, as if protecting me. What are you doing here? She asked. Tanisha ignored her. Mama, you can't leave like this. Please, we need to talk. Malik nodded. This is crazy. You're our mother. You can't just disappear. I looked at them calmly, calmer than I thought I would be. How did you know I would be here? I asked. Tanisha hesitated. Then she spoke. I called Ellie. I begged her to tell me. I said we needed to say goodbye, that we needed to talk one last time. I looked at Ellie. She shook her head. I'm sorry, Vivian, she said. She called crying. She said she just wanted to say goodbye. I thought maybe it would help. I thought you might need that closure. I wasn't angry at Ellie. I understood. She had a good heart. She thought she was doing the right thing. It's okay, I said. It's fine. I stood up and faced my children. You have 5 minutes, I told them. Say what you came to say. Malik spoke first. Mama, you sold the house. Our house. The house we grew up in, without telling us, without asking us. How could you do that? I looked straight at him. That house was mine, Malik. Not yours. Not Tanisha's. Mine. I paid for it. I lived in it. I had the right to decide what to do with it. But it was our inheritance, Tanisha said. It was supposed to be our future. Your inheritance? I repeated. Your future? It's interesting how you only think about what you'll get when I die. Never about what you could give me while I'm alive. Never about how to make my last years peaceful. Only about what you'll inherit. That's not true, Malik said. Of course we care about you. I laughed, a bitter laugh. If I mattered to you, you wouldn't be here arguing about the house. You'd be asking why I'm leaving. You'd be asking if I'm okay. You'd be asking what I need. But no, you only care about the money. Just like always. Tanisha started crying again. Mama, please don't leave hating us. We can change. I swear. We can be better. Just give me a chance. I looked at her. You had 50 years to be that daughter, Tanisha. 50 years. I don't have time left to wait anymore. I took 2 envelopes from my purse, the last ones I had prepared. I handed one to each of them. This is the last thing you will ever receive from me, I said. Open them after you leave. Not now. Tanisha took hers with shaking hands. Malik put his in his pocket without looking at it. What's inside? Malik asked. A letter, I said. Everything I never said. Everything I endured. Everything you should have heard years ago. And something else, something you need to know. Tanisha opened her envelope anyway. She pulled out the letter and started reading. Her face changed. She went pale. Malik, she said, you need to read this. He took out his letter and read it too. Both of them looked at me in shock. In those letters, I told the full truth. Every sacrifice. Every time I ate less so they could eat more. Every time I skipped my medicine to pay for their schooling. Every time I worked while sick so they could have new clothes. I wrote dates, numbers, details they never knew, or never wanted to see. I also told them about the money. I told them exactly how much I got from selling the house, $100,000. I told them they wouldn't get a single cent of it while I was alive. I would use it to live my remaining years the way I wanted, without asking permission, without guilt. I explained that I had changed my will. When I die, whatever is left will be divided like this. 50% to Ellie. For being the only person who treated me with dignity. 25% to a charity that helps abandoned elderly women. 25% shared between the 2 of them, if they are still alive. This can't be legal, Malik said. There must be a law that protects children. I looked at him with pity. It is completely legal, Malik. Avery made sure of that. I have the right to choose what I do with my money, my property, and my life. Tanisha was still crying. But Mama, You don't have to leave. Stay close to us. We can take care of you. Please. I already bought the ticket, I said. The house is sold. I've said my goodbyes. There's no going back. This is final. Then the announcement came over the speaker. Departure to Coastal Haven. Gate number 6. Final call. That was my signal. My moment. I picked up my suitcase. Ellie hugged me tightly. Take good care, she whispered into my ear. Write me when you arrive. Call me when you can. And most of all, be happy. You deserve it. I promised her. I turned to leave. Tanisha suddenly grabbed my arm. Mama, wait. Please just tell me one thing, she said. Do you hate us? I stopped. I looked her straight in the eyes. I don't hate you, I said calmly. But I don't love you enough to keep sacrificing myself for you anymore. And that's the difference. Love has to go both ways. It has to be mutual. And ours never was. Malik stepped forward. Then what are we now? He asked. What are we to you? Nothing, I replied. The word sounded harsher than I meant it to, but it was the truth. You are nothing to me because I was always nothing to you. Just a source of money. Just an obligation. Just someone who was there because she had to be. Now I don't have to be. And I choose not to be. I turned and walked toward the boarding gate. They followed me for a few steps. Then they stopped. It was like they finally understood there was nothing else to do, nothing else to say, that this was real. That their mother was truly leaving, and that they were the reason why. I showed my ticket. The driver checked my bag and told me to get on board. I climbed the steps of the bus and found my seat by the window. I sat down and looked outside. Ellie was standing there, smiling and waving goodbye. Behind her stood Tanisha and Malik, frozen in place, watching as the bus prepared to leave. The engine started. The bus moved slowly at first, then faster. I watched Ellie grow smaller. I saw my children still standing there, not moving, probably trying to understand what had just happened. That their mother had left, that their source of money was gone, and that they no longer had anyone to run to when they needed something. The bus pulled out of the terminal and onto the highway. The city slowly disappeared behind me. The streets I knew. The buildings I recognized. The neighborhood where I had lived my entire life. Everything was left behind. And with every mile we traveled, I felt myself breathing easier. My chest felt lighter. My heart felt calmer. I leaned back in my seat and closed my eyes. I thought about everything I had left behind. The house, the memories, my children, my whole past life. Then I thought about everything I had gained. Freedom, dignity, the chance to be myself, to live for me, to finally see the ocean. I opened my eyes and looked out the window. The view had changed. No more buildings. Now there were fields, trees, and mountains far away. Beauty I had never noticed before because I was always too busy, too tired, too worried about everyone else. An older woman was sitting across the aisle. She smiled at me. Traveling alone? She asked. I nodded. Yes, I said. I'm traveling alone to start a new life. She smiled even wider. How brave, she said. At our age, not many people dare to start over. I congratulate you. I thanked her. And I realized something. I was brave. Leaving everything familiar to look for something better takes courage. And I had that courage. The bus kept moving. Hours passed. We stopped in different cities. People got on. People got off. I stayed in my seat, watching the world pass by, feeling every mile like freedom. Like one more step toward the woman I was always meant to be. I thought about Tanisha and Malik. I wondered if they would be okay. If they would ever understand. If they would regret their choices. Then I stopped wondering. It was no longer my responsibility. No longer my burden. They were adults. They made their choices. And I made mine. I pulled out a new notebook I had bought. I opened the first page and wrote, My name is Vivian Sterling. I am 70 years old, and today I begin to live for the first time in my life. I begin to live for me. The bus arrived in Coastal Haven at dawn the next morning. I had traveled all night. I barely slept, not because I was uncomfortable, but because I was excited. For the first time in decades, I felt hope. the feeling that something good was coming. I stepped off the bus with my suitcase. The air smelled different. It smelled like salt, like the sea, like something new. The terminal was small, clean, and quiet. Nothing like the noisy city I had left behind. I took a taxi and gave the driver the hotel address, a simple place I had booked online with Ellie's help. We drove through narrow streets, past small houses painted in soft colors. People walked slowly, without rushing, without stress. Then we passed the boardwalk. And there it was. The ocean. Huge and shining under the morning sun. I couldn't breathe. I had never seen the ocean before. 70 years of life. And I had never seen it. It had always been a distant dream, something for other people. Something I never had time or money for. But now it was right there. Real. Beautiful. Waiting for me. The hotel was small but warm and welcoming. The owner was Brenda Hayes, a woman in her 60s with a kind smile. She welcomed me like an old friend. "Welcome to Coastal Haven," she said. "You're going to be very happy here." I felt she was right. My room faced the ocean. I opened the window. The breeze rushed in, fresh, salty, full of promise. I sat on the bed, looked at the endless horizon and cried. Not from sadness. From relief. From gratitude. For arriving. For having the courage to arrive. I unpacked my few belongings, took a shower, changed my clothes, and went down for breakfast. Brenda served me coffee and fresh bread. We talked. I told her I had come to start over, and that I was looking for a permanent place to live. She said she knew a few options, small, affordable houses with ocean views. After breakfast, I went for a walk. I walked slowly along the boardwalk, taking everything in. The sea, the seagulls, the fishermen, the locals. Everything felt calm, peaceful, and far from the life I once knew. I sat on a bench facing the ocean. I closed my eyes and listened to the waves. It was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. A sound that filled me with peace. A sound that told me I had made the right choice. That I deserved to be here. That I deserved this new chance. An older woman sat beside me. She looked about 80, wearing a big hat and dark glasses. "Good morning," she said. "Good morning," I replied. "Beautiful day," she said. "Every day is beautiful here." I smiled. "It's my first day in Coastal Haven." She nodded. "I know. I can see it on your face. The face of someone who has just discovered something wonderful." Her name was Gloria Jenkins. She had lived there for 20 years. She told me she had come there to escape a life she could no longer bear, people who hurt her, and she said it was the best decision she ever made. I felt connected to her immediately. We talked for hours. She told me about the town, the people, and the simple, peaceful life there. She told me about a community of older women, women like us, who came looking for peace and a fresh start. She invited me to a group that met on Tuesdays, a reading group, knitting group, conversation group, a friendship group. I accepted right away. For the first time in years, I wanted to meet people. I wanted friends. I finally had time, energy, and the desire to live. The days that followed were full of discovery. Brenda showed me several small houses. I saw 5, 6, 7. Then I found the one. A small single-story house. 2 bedrooms. A kitchen. A living room. A small yard in front. And a deck in the back with a direct ocean view. It cost $50,000. I had the money. I made an offer that same day. The owner accepted. 2 weeks later, we closed the deal. I signed the papers. Transferred the money. And just like that, for the first time in my life, I owned a house that was only mine. Not shared. Not planned as an inheritance. Just mine, to live in my way. I moved in a week later. I bought simple furniture. New, clean, without memories. A comfortable bed. A small sofa. A table facing the ocean. White curtains that let in the light. Everything new. Everything is mine. I created a routine. I woke up early, made coffee, and sat on the deck watching the sunrise over the ocean. Then I walked along the beach, collected shells, and dipped my feet into the cold water. I felt alive in a way I never had before. In the afternoons, I read books I always wanted to read. I wrote in my diary my thoughts, my feelings, my memories. At night, I cooked food I liked, just for me. I joined Gloria's group. I met other people, Ms. Eva Carter, 68, Mr. Ronald Davis, 75, and many others, all with similar stories, all searching for peace, dignity, and a second chance. We became friends quickly. We met often. We talked, laughed, drank tea, and shared our stories without judgment. Months passed. I called Ellie every week. We talked about my life, my house, the ocean, my friends. She never mentioned Tanisha or Malik. And I never asked. That chapter was closed. 6 months later, Ellie told me something. "Vivian," she said, "your children have been asking about you. They want to know where you are and if you're okay." She hadn't told them anything. I thanked her. I told her to do what felt right, but I wasn't ready to talk to them. Maybe I never would be. I thought about them sometimes. Not often. And then I reminded myself, I had given them 50 years. Now these years belong to me. I turned 71 in Coastal Haven. My friends threw me a small birthday party. They sang. They hugged me. They told me they loved me. And I believed them. Gloria gave me a painting. It was the ocean. My ocean. The one I see every morning from my deck. I hung the painting in my living room, right across from where I usually sit. I wanted to see it every day, to remind myself how far I had come, how brave I had been, and how much I gained by finally choosing myself. One afternoon, I was sitting on my deck watching the sunset. The sky was filled with soft orange and pink colors. The waves rolled gently onto the shore. I held a warm cup of tea in my hands. I felt calm, completely calm. I thought about the Vivian I used to be. The woman who woke up at 5 every morning to serve everyone else. The woman who cried alone in an empty room. The woman who accepted tiny bits of love and told herself it was enough. That Vivian stayed behind. In that city, in that house, in that old life. The Vivian I am now is different. She is a woman who chose herself. A woman who took control of her own life. A woman who finally said, enough. A woman who had the courage to start over when everyone else thought it was too late. I took out my diary and opened a blank page. I wrote the words I had been holding inside for so long. The words that closed one chapter and opened another. My name no longer belongs to anyone else. I am no longer just Tanisha and Malik's mother. I am no longer just Marcus's widow. I am no longer the woman who gives and gives until she has nothing left. My name is Vivian. Just Vivian. A 71-year-old woman who lives by the ocean. A woman with real friends. A woman who wakes up happy and goes to sleep in peace. A woman who knows what freedom feels like. A woman who learned that it is never too late to choose herself. My story with them ended, but my story is only beginning. And this story belongs only to me. No one can take it away. No one can destroy it. Because I finally learned the most important lesson of all. Loving yourself is not selfish. Taking care of yourself is not betrayal. Choosing your happiness is not cruelty. I closed my diary and looked at the ocean. The waves kept moving in their endless rhythm, rising and falling, like life itself. Like endings that are also beginnings. Like goodbyes that are also welcomes. The sun fully set, and the stars appeared one by one, lighting up the dark sky. I stayed there, breathing in the salty air, listening to the sea, feeling whole. For the first time in my 71 years, I felt complete. Not because someone else completed me, but because I finally found myself. The Vivian who had always been there, waiting for her moment. And that moment had come. My story was just beginning. And it would be a beautiful story. A story of freedom. A story of dignity. A story of a woman who refused to end her life as a small footnote in someone else's story. A woman who wrote her own ending. And her own beginning. I stood up and went inside my house. My house by the ocean. I closed the door and smiled. Tomorrow would be another beautiful day. Another day of my new life. Another day of simply being Vivian. And that was more than enough. I'm really glad you're here, and that I could share my story with you. If you enjoyed it, please show your support by liking this video and subscribing to my channel. Let's see how many of us are here together. Write in the comments which city you're watching from, and what time it is. I'd love to know where all you wonderful people are tuning in from. I share new life stories with you every single day. And now, 2 of my most popular stories will appear on the screen, so you can choose what to watch next.